There are way too many suits at this conference, you guys. It is time for a t-shirt. "100% human," where we all join up. So hello. So I've actually done this talk completely from scratch. I wanted to do something different and personal, and tell you a bunch of stories about a journey, 30 years for me, of being sort of increasingly curious. So I want to tell you two personal stories to start. Confession first. I don't get government. I have no idea what you guys do. It seems very complicated and clever and frameworky and all these words like policy and matrix and all this stuff. Anyway, that used to be the case. Actually, something changed a few years ago. I was asked to speak here at the Houses of Parliament in the UK. Is anybody here an MP from the UK before I say inappropriate things? So they did this sort of monthly thing, and they brought in inspiring people, quote unquote. And so I was supposed to be inspiring. So I'm sitting at a table in the middle of this place with all of these sort of super clever people saying things like "hear, hear," which was all very strange. And there were four of us. And there was a Nobel Prize-winning economist. There was the most important living architect. There was some dude who said that he was fixing Estonia, which I thought was like a super clever thing to say that you did. I had no idea what it was. And then there was me. And so all these people were doing all of this stuff, and they said, "Oh, I'm doing this, that, and the other," and they were all very clever, and I was super intimidated. And then it came to me, and the moderator said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a designer." And she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "God, I have absolutely no idea. Let me tell you what I do." And I said, "We go out into the world and we talk to real people, and we sit in their homes, and we have conversations with them, and we figure out ideas together, and we make those ideas real, and we hopefully get those ideas out into the world together. And that's what I do." And there was this pause. And then somebody up in the balcony, a politician, said, "I think that's what we're supposed to do as well." And everybody stood up, and I got a round of applause. And I thought, I get it. You do what I do. It's just design. So, story two. This is 1963, and this is where I grew up. I grew up in Singapore. My father was in the military. This is my mum and dad. And this is me. And I can't believe I'm showing you a picture of me wearing my mum's shoes, which is in itself mortifying, but there we go. And we lived here in a house with a little pink roof. And we would go to places like this. This is what was called at the time the Tiger Balm Gardens. And for years, we used to ask my dad, "Why did you take us to Singapore?" And he would always say this: "We wanted you to grow up somewhere optimistic." Right. So, I have two learnings to start this conversation with. One, I do what you do, and you do what I do. You guys are just designers, and by the way, I work in government. So government is just design, it's just at a really, really big scale. So I think we're all doing the same thing. And two, optimism and hope are the most powerful design tools that exist. And therefore, I'm not frightened of you anymore. Because as an eternally optimistic designer, this is what I do. So I think we all do the same thing. Okay. So now I do this for a living, and I work at a company, IDEO, where we do this stuff all the time. And people come to us and they ask us awesome questions. So I want to show you four of the things that we've been doing recently. The country of Peru, we have been helping enact the vision of a local entrepreneur to improve the quality of the middle class in his country. This is a gentleman, Carlos Rodriguez Pasteur. He is the CEO of Intercorp, one of Peru's largest corporations, multinational corporations. And he believes this, a theme that I've heard many times already at this event. The wealth of a country is measured in its young people. Check. We all agree on that, right? So unfortunately for Peru, there was an educational ranking of the world's top 49 countries in educational prowess. Peru was unfortunately number 49. Sorry, and I know you're all dying to know where you guys are on this, so UAE, I think, is in the low 30s. So he said, okay, what are we going to do about this? We need to change this, right? And so together, we designed him a new school system. In fact, my colleague Sandy, who's sitting in this front row here, was actually the person that led this project. So we created Innova, and it is a school, and again, a theme that I think is very important is a school based on a new set of values. It's not just about teaching, it is about inculcating the next generation with a different value set. So you see kids working together, collaborating, often using technology to create a different kind of educational experience, where things like this, explore, design, experiment, share, are the values that they are asking their young people to embody. So it's not just about teaching them reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is about inculcating them with a new set of beliefs, a new kind of hope. So we packaged it all up in a box. I think they've now done 37 of them. They're all over Peru. It's awesome. The educational results have gone from 17% proficiency to 61% proficiency. So yes, there are results. So what this has turned into is us now working with Innova to take their people and our people and work together to create a laboratory which is all about helping Peru move forward. And so their stated purpose is to improve the lives of Peruvian people through human-centered innovation. So we have taught them to do this. We have taught them to fish. So I want you to hold one thought. Everybody is trying to figure this out. How to activate the next generation of youth, the next generation of learners, the next generation of citizens, the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so this is how you do it, by using design. Second conversation, Singapore. This is what we have been doing, creating a creatively confident country. So our first project in Singapore was to help actually create this, which is the EPSC, the Employment Past Service Center, helping people come into the country in a way that feels less processy, less bureaucratic, and less systemy. It actually feels like a service with real people and things like toys for kids. So it's a designed experience as opposed to a process-driven experience. This led into one of my favorite things that we've ever done. This was a letter that the Singaporean government would send you to tell you if you had or had not been asked or approved to get into the country. It was 13 pages long. It was mainly legalese. There was actually Latin words in it, which most people who were reading it had no idea what it meant. And we said, this is the least human-centered thing we've ever seen. Imagine being welcomed into a country with a lease agreement. This is awful. We'd like to redesign it. So we did. And it looks like this. And we have now redesigned 500 of these letters that communicate on behalf of the government in a human-centered way. So this kind of mindset has been unlocked throughout the whole of Singapore now. So we've been doing challenges. I wrote to the Prime Minister of Singapore on Facebook and said, hey, dude, I think we should work together. Let's do a project around the environment. He wrote back. We ended up doing an open innovation challenge with the citizens around the future of environment. We've now helped them create a portal around aging, makeathons, design, bringing the culture of creativity at a fundamental level to the citizens. We're actually in the process of redesigning the road signs in Singapore to be less ruly and more permission-y. Because the last thing you want to do when you walk around a country is constantly be told, don't. It makes you feel like you're being told all the time. How about it assumes that you're intelligent and good and want to do the right thing? So this is about prototyping that and designing that together with the Singaporean civil service to create a different kind of experience. This is a lady called Agnes Kwek, who is a Singaporean civil servant who came and worked for us for a year at IDEO, spent a year, and has gone back into the Singaporean government as one of their design officers, where she is now creating experiences like this. This is a train that she has designed. In fact, she calls it the train storm. So they have been asking citizens to help design on a moving train that goes around the city and actually creates new kinds of experiences together. And don't forget to make it fun, lah, is a Singaporean phrase. So what am I asking you to think about here? I think that even though government is big and it's sprawly and complicated, people want to get involved. They want to participate, they want to co-create, and they want to be part of your future. So let them in. Number 3, Open IDEO. We have a platform, an open innovation platform, which is about citizen co-creation. And actually, it began here in Dubai. I spoke here at TEDx in 2009, and I stood on stage, and I said, hey, it would be really, really good if we did a sort of conversation with the nation. Let's try this. So we put a Facebook page at the time, big conversations. I'm coming to Dubai, what do you think? I held a brainstorm outside in English and Arabic, and we had a whole bunch of people queuing to put their ideas on Post-it notes. And so we're like, this idea that people want to participate, this is awesome, let's do more of this stuff. So we created the platform, Open IDEO. People can come from anywhere in the world to participate in challenges of social good. Our first client was Jamie Oliver, who said, I want to do something about childhood obesity, can you help? So we're finding these complex, dark topics, mass violence against civilians. This was one that I was actually invited to attend in Australia. The Premier of Queensland, Anna Blythe, came to me and said, our Aboriginal population is dying and I want to do something about it. Can you help us create a different conversation? So here we are about food production and consumption with the Australian government. And I'm happy to say things like Aboriginal cooking schools came out of this, and Aboriginal cookbooks, and an awareness of a different kind of health conversation. So these direct correlations between ask and behave and do are something that we really believe in. And so now we give away all of our methods. And again, I think there's something very interesting in this idea of allowing everybody to sort of see and share what it is that you've created. So we constantly publish our methods, and we allow anybody who's interested to download them, use them, and do whatever they like with them. So at the moment, we currently have a process called IDEO, where again, people can come in from all over the world and learn our methods, learn our process, and learn how we do what we do. And so again, I love that you guys and the Sheikh are talking about generosity, because I think generosity is where it's all going. So if I could ask you to hold one thought in this, I think that generosity is a very big idea. I think that I say this to corporate clients every day, the number one form of market leadership is to actually let go of something as opposed to hold on to something. And so the more you give out and the more you want everybody to prosper, the more you prosper in the process. And I've heard again and again at this event that that is something that is really driving, I think, a large part of the strategy of this region, which I think is absolutely amazing. Last one is IDEO.org. And so this is our purpose, this is IDEO's stated purpose, to create disproportionate impact. So we've been saying for years, we want to help as many people as possible, and not just people who can afford to do what we do, but people who actually can't afford what we do. So we created a philanthropic arm for ourselves called IDEO.org, whose mission is to improve the lives of people in poor and vulnerable communities through design. So far, we've run 64 projects in 23 countries. Almost 600,000 people in 211 countries and territories around the world have contributed to challenges of social good. And so explaining how we do what we do in the most simple and playful way to people has been part of the process. But seeing people in places like Ghana creating water purification, or again, sanitation, or places like this in India and Bangladesh, where we're looking at women's rights and we're looking at health and we're looking at poverty, has been incredible to see. I want to share an example of something I saw recently. This is Asili. Asili is a social enterprise in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Is anybody here from the DRC by any chance? Because it would be awesome if there was. No? Shame. Congo is an intense place, guys. It's really challenging. And so we have created a really interesting brand there that's about water purification, health, and agriculture. So I want to share a few examples. This is a health clinic that we created, which again is sort of beautifully designed and brings to rural areas really, really great quality health care. Water, this is a water station. And again, to watch local citizens participating in the process of both creating and owning, we've talked about this as a shareholder model, allowing people to participate has been incredible to watch. This was a prototype that we recently ran. We're calling this the Village Facebook, because obviously people here don't have cell phones, and we wanted to be able to help them be part of a conversation. So we literally painted a wall in the clinic with blackboard paint. This at the top says, "What's your hope for Congo?" and everybody is writing here, and the little boy who's standing here watching runs on to the next village and tells everybody what their people in his village have been writing, and he is literally a human network. So these kinds of workarounds and these kind of processes are really exciting to explore. Just because there is nothing better than watching children sing, right? This was a video I took on my iPhone recently. We were asking children to understand the value of hand washing, and so we asked them to make up songs, and so... That's design. That is design. I want each of you to think about one thing. I want you to think about, do you have these moments in your life, or would you like to have one of those moments in your life where you realize why you exist? And I want to share mine with you. This was in Congo. This is a hospital. And this was one of the first places where Ebola was found. And this is me standing outside of it, freaking out. And so the doctor came out and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm a designer." And he said, "What's your role?" And I said, "I'm the chief creative officer of a design company." And he said, "I don't know what a chief creative officer is. What do you do?" And he said, "Can I introduce you to our chief?" And I said, Sure. So the chief comes out. And I have this conversation with the chief. And I say, "Listen, you're a chief of a village. I'm a chief of a village as well. But my village is just a creative village, and it's all over the world, but I do exactly what you do." And he said, "Oh, I understand. He said, I design things. Can I show you what I've designed?" So we brought a Sealy to this village, and we brought clean water, and we brought healthcare. And one of the things that we built was a water tank outside of the village. And he said, "I want to show you the water tank." And I'm like, okay, why is this dude showing me a water tank? Like, what's the big idea? And he said, "We've painted the water tank. We're very, very excited." And so what we had done was we said, rather than put corporate graphics all over this water tank, why don't we let the village make it their own? Why don't we give them paint and just let them decorate the water tank? So this is their water tank. And you know those moments where you feel humble and tiny, and this guy is telling you that this is why he's so proud of what he does, and you're him and he's you, and you're standing there and you start to cry? Because if you don't, you should. Because I stood there and I was shaking, and I was like, I get it. I'm put here to serve, and this is what we do. We give people the tools to create a better life. So my last point up here is this, which I actually think that design is like government, and both of them are like gardening. It's about planting seeds of hope, and it is letting people harvest it with you. This guy gave me a flower from the garden that we planted together. And it is mind-blowing to have that moment. Thank you. This is the thing that I'm here for. I asked to speak at this conference. They didn't ask me to speak. I asked them if I could speak, for this reason. This is true. I became American this year. I'm a Brit. I became an American this year. Right. Imagine how I'm feeling. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. But as a Californian, or as a guy who spent a lot of time working in California, I get to say the next line. This dude blew my mind. This is Mohammed Al-Gharqawi. I've sent him this slide. I'm like, dude, I'm going to tell everybody you're a dude. Are you cool with that? He's like, I guess. I met him a few months ago, and I'm sitting in his office, and he says, "What do you think of ISIS?" And I'm like, oh my God, that's an intense question. Like, I don't know. I think it's pretty crazy, right? And he said this line, "How do we fight this radicalism all around us?" And I'm like, yes, I get it. So here's the answer to how we do this. I have 5 points. We need equal radicalism back. So I have 5 lessons from 33 years of being a designer that hopefully join this all up. This is number 1. You have to nurture radical empathy. You have to understand what it feels like to be somebody else. So I want to show you a little movie. Again, all my crappy iPhone movies, you're seeing them all today, I apologize. I stood in Congo, and the first thing I did when I went to Congo was they said, you have to go to church. And I said, oh my God, the walls will fall down. I haven't been in a church for 30 years. Ex-altar boy, the ceiling will collapse. And they said, no, you have to go to church because you have to understand what it's like. And I stood in church in rural Congo, and I'm going to press play on this. And the sound and the smell and the vision and everything was so powerful, I started shaking. I wrote a piece for National Geographic, and I said, I didn't understand it till I made the hairs on my arms stand on end. And that was that sense of being in this room with these people and feeling what they were feeling. And what they were feeling was hope. And what I was able to feel from them was hope. And it felt incredible. So I encourage you to get out of the intellectual and the framework and the whiteboard and the arrows and the bubbles and just go to church. Or do whatever that is. Just stand there and feel it. Because for me, it was more transformative to be in the room than it was to talk about what it was like. Second thing is you have to dream radical dreams. And again, I've heard this word over and over again, dream. You have to have bold dreams. I love this place because it's just so crazy. The dreams are so big and audacious, and I love that. This is a little girl I met in Rwanda. Her name is Welcome, which is in itself a message from God. And so I'm driving on, and obviously we know Rwanda's had a tough time, right? And so her father was a taxi driver, and she picked me up, and I'm sitting there, and I said, hey, what's your name? And she said, Welcome. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I said, so what do you want to do? She said, I want to be a surgeon. And I said, wow, that's amazing. I said, not a doctor? She said, no, anybody can be a doctor. I want to be a surgeon. And I'm like, oh my God, this little girl in the middle of nowhere in Rwanda, and she's driving around learning English, talking to people like me, and she's basically represents everything I want in the world. And I'm like, this is amazing. Third thing is you need to practice radical humility. You need to recognize when they're in the presence of greatness, and you need to appreciate that as a gift. This gentleman came into my life recently. His name is Dr. B.J. Miller, and he is a palliative care physician. And the reason why he is working in palliative care is because when he was 18, he had an accident and lost all of his limbs and died. And so now he is an expert on what it feels like to be talking about death. So we've been working together. We helped him construct a TED Talk. We've been working together with him to help him craft a vision for how it feels to actually die with dignity. And standing next to him, I realize I am in the presence of greatness, and I am humbled. You have to do this. You have to collaborate radically with people who don't seem to make sense on the surface, but who are amazing actually in practice. So we did a project recently, my colleague Sandy knows about this, where we were asked to redesign the juvenile detention experience for young offenders. So we went into prison, and this is an IDEO design team working with prisoners to understand how they feel, how they got there, where they're going. These are our design partners. So we are working with radically different people with a radically different life to us to understand how it is that they do what they do. And finally, you have to be radically curious. So I want to bring this all the way back to the end. This is my dad, and 12 years ago, he died. And it broke my heart, and to this day is one of the most difficult things to deal with. And I felt like I honored his death by actually saying, what can we do about this? Can actually I make this into a design opportunity? And can I see his death as inspiration rather than as tragedy? So I have gone out into the world and actually created a series of conversations about how, as designers, we can redesign the end of life. So this is an open IDEO challenge that we've recently been running. It has the highest uptake on a challenge we've ever done about the end of life that people want to participate in. So, last slide. So it's my turn to ask you. As designers who work in government, and now I'm looking back at you, I want to ask you the question that was asked of me. Why are you here?